Hundreds of business executives and risk professionals from around the world asked us how they could use enterprise risk management, or ERM, more strategically to create value-driven performance. We listened, and so did the Committee of Sponsoring Organizations of the Treadway Commission, also known as COSO. They engaged us to update the ERM integrated framework to address how the alignment of risk, strategy, and performance could create unprecedented opportunity for optimal business performance. Originally issued in 2004 by COSO, the framework is one of the most widely recognized and applied enterprise risk management frameworks in the world. We've created a video series that explains the key changes to this framework. This video explores the delineation between ERM and internal control and discusses how it is addressed in the framework. Today I'm sitting with Frank Martens and Jason Pett to discuss how the new framework delineates between enterprise risk management and internal control. Frank, what have we learned about internal control?
Dennis, when we were doing our initial research, we heard two very interesting things. The first was that people agreed that internal control and ERM were linked. Over 70% of the people who responded to our survey said they agreed or strongly agreed that we needed to keep that in place. But we also heard comments that people were looking for greater focus on risk and less on control. So the challenge for us in updating the framework was to find a way to accommodate that, to retain the prominence of internal control, but also raise the focus on risk and risk management. We've done that in a couple of ways. The 2013 internal control framework is still relatively new. We've built some very integrated links between those two frameworks to again, leverage what we had in 2003.
Thanks, Frank. Jason, can you give us some examples?
Sure. The updated framework explains in the introduction the importance of internal control and how internal control remains an integral part of ERM. For instance, in the risk and execution section, the discussion on selecting and deploying risk response refers directly to the need for control activities over those risk responses. The importance of internal control is also emphasized in the conversation on effectiveness, which reinforces the understanding that controls are important when considering and evaluating ERM practices. The absence of controls would dramatically impact the evaluation of ERM.
Thanks, Jason. You know, Frank, we've heard a lot of confusion between risk and internal control. Where's some of this confusion coming from?
There's probably two underlying reasons for that. One is we used graphics which were very, very similar between the frameworks, and sometimes the graphical aspect confused people. We had two cubes, one had 5 elements, one had 8, but they were very similar in look and layout. The second thing is that when we released it in 2004 was right at the time of the Sarbanes-Oxley Act coming out.
Jason, how have you seen some of that manifest?
When Sarbanes came out and there was a rush towards really a deep internal control framework and the importance of focusing on that, ERM came right on the heels of that. I think that there was this natural desire to just slam the two together. And what we're saying is, look, the ERM really needs to stand on its own, really be operating at the strategy and the organizational level, and then internal control needs to slot into those at very important points.
Now, Frank, we had some choices to make about how to approach the framework and bringing internal control into it. How did we approach it?
We changed what we did from 2004. In 2004, we had the all-inclusion method. We took all of internal control and said internal control and ERM are supportive. So we included all of that conversation we had from 2004. When we went through the update, we wanted to focus more on the incremental aspect of risk and enterprise risk management. We've built important links between the frameworks and demonstrated the intersect and how they need to work together and how they're complementary. We have clearly elevated the conversation around things like strategy, performance, culture, other aspects that we think are so important to this framework, and let the internal control conversation play out through the internal control framework.
So Jason, what does this mean to internal audit?
We get the opportunity within internal audit to team with the business on aligning around strategy and performance. The business is going to be focused on what the risk drivers are. Internal audit's focused on embedding their activity around strategy and performance. It creates a natural alignment between the two. Secondly, it gives us an opportunity to really team with the business on helping them evolve this function and really advancing the ERM capability of the business. It's an exciting time for internal audit to get engaged with the business and help advance the ERM framework overall.
Thank you both very much for joining me today. For more information on this program, visit pwc.com/ERM framework to learn more about the changes to the framework and how they will impact your business. Thank you.